My name's Ken Bob. Today you're shooting with me. Alright, so today on Ken Bob's Gun Show we're going to talk about the basics of firearms, how one operates and how one operates one. Okay, before we go out in the range and start shooting, I want to explain to a few people out here that don't understand exactly what happens when a firearm's trigger is squeezed. I want to go ahead and explain that a little bit. For that I'm going to use this whiteboard. This whiteboard is dirty. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to use this cat. Okay, boom. Typical semi-automatic handgun. Now, you've got your trigger, your hammer, your firing pin, your bullet, your barrel, riflings, whatever. Got everything that works. So, your trigger is connected to your hammer by some sort of black magic. Now, when you squeeze the trigger, that cocks your hammer back. When the hammer's had enough, it finally releases and then it hits the firing pin. The firing pin hits the primer. The primer is located in the back of the shell casing for the bullet. Now, when that primer gets hit, it ignites the main charge for the bullet, gunpowder. Now, that powder then turns into expanding gases. Those expanding gases then create enough force to push that bullet down the barrel and out the bore. So anyways, now the riflings, which are located inside the barrel, these little groovy dealer revolvers, are actually engraved on the inside of just about any barrel nowadays, other than like shotguns and crap. So that gives the bullet a little bit of a spin, kind of like you give a football. When you give a football, you hold your fingers by the laces, you twist it down, you throw the football, and it spins through the air, and somehow you magically hit your target. Whatever, Marcus Mariota. Anyways, that's just your typical handgun. Now, a lot of the times after that, your firearm is then going to cycle itself. It's auto-loading, which means that it's going to use some of the force that is those expanding gases. Pushing the bullet out of the barrel is also going to recoil and rack the action back. So it's going to actually rock your entire slide and reset the process. However, typically from here, your trigger will no longer be such a long pull, depending on the firearm. You'll then just have a single stage that you just have to quickly squeeze your trigger, and then your hammer will then go off and whatever. It'll eject the old shell casing once it's fired and all that crap. That doesn't matter. You don't really need to know all that if you're just beginning. The firearm works. People design them to work, and they just happen to work. Of course, depending on the type of firearm you got. Not gonna point fingers, but if you haven't heard of it before, you haven't used it in Call of Duty, it's probably not the best firearm out there. Okay, now we got our typical auto-loading rifle. So let's say, just for the sake of whatever, this one's semi-automatic, but doesn't really matter. Okay, squeeze the trigger. Squeezing the trigger releases a hammer. Hammer hits against the nail-shaped firing pin. Firing pin then hits the primer that's located in the back of the shell casing. The primer then ignites the full, blown charge, the gunpowder, and then that turns that into expanding gases. Expanding gases then drive the bullet out of the barrel. Riflings give that bullet a spin like a football, so it's accurate. Okay, now as the bullet is traveling down the barrel, here's where we get a little bit different. Some of the expanding gases then travel up this yellow tube and then come back and directly impinge against the bolt. Or, unless it's some sort of weird gas piston contraption, then the gas is going to then hit on the gas piston, but doesn't really matter, whatever. It works because someone designed it that way, Eugene Stoner. Anyway, so that gas then impinges on the bolt carrier assembly. It's going to drive the bolt back. As the bolt's coming back, there is an extractor. It's a little hook that grabs onto the back of the bullet. It's going to pull it out of the chamber, and then it's going to get ejected from the ejector that's located on the bolt face, and it's going to throw the shell casing empty out of the gun. The bolt is then going to keep coming back, come back forward. The front of the bolt is going to grab onto the back of the shell casing, the bullet, and then is going to load the new one into the chamber. Now, unless you have depressed your trigger, there's going to be the sear catch for your reset. So that's going to catch onto the back of your hammer, blah, blah, blah. And then you can't just hold down your trigger and have the gun go full auto, essentially. So then you need to release it. You'll hear a little click on rifles like this one with the reset. Then you can squeeze the trigger and fire it again. So that is what protects the rifle from going fully automatic. Then you just basically repeat the process. Wow, I wasted a lot of time. Give me a like for drawing a car 15. Okay, now it's time to go shooting and crap. Alright, so today we're going to start out with my PA-63 FEG chambered in 9x18 Makarov. We've got some steel targets downrange. Steel targets are okay to shoot from close distances as long as your ammunition is subsonic. I chose this firearm because it is most like the one that I showed you in the drawing earlier. It's got a hammer, it's not striker fired like a Glock. Okay, so now basics. Firearm with a loaded magazine. It's Silver Bear ammunition, I forget the grains, whatever, I bought the box of ammo years ago. Anyways, has a safety lever here. I've got the safety off. I don't ever carry the gun around chambered. I always just make sure to train pulling the weapon out of my concealed carry. I use the appendix carry, and then I practice chambering around really quick and getting on target. Not going to talk about that today. We're just going to be talking about the basics. Okay. So what we're going to do is line up our sights on the target. You've got two little posts. And you're going to have a little post up front. You got to put that little post in the center of the two posts in the back. Now, a lot of times some people say that's the main thing you want to concentrate on when you're trying to start shooting for the first time. I always say it's easiest to actually try to use a rifle with an optic. Get used to shooting a gun first. Just like when you talk about getting in a car, driving an automatic's a lot easier than driving a manual transmission. You might as well get used to driving a car with an automatic transmission, then going to more complicated things like shifting gears. So, anyways, then I would like to say that recoil is impossible to delete. Okay? So, rather than trying to get rid of a recoil, let's just try to absorb it. Like a car's suspension going down the road or something. Okay, bumps in the road are inevitable, recoil is inevitable. Absorb it, deal with it. Okay. Now, don't ever just quickly touch off the trigger. Always try to slowly squeeze the trigger. Don't touch the trigger until you're ready to fire. Don't get the firearm ready. Don't get the firearm loaded until you're ready to shoot. Whatever. Okay, I'm gonna go hot. Okay, now let's say I'm done shooting for a little bit. Okay, firearm is cocked still. All you'd have to do is simply touch the trigger and it would go off again. So you can slowly remove the magazine. Then either cock the firearm back and get that round out of there. You can decock it by putting the safety on. Most firearms, it's how they work. Beretta 92, things like that. Okay, then you can cock it back, get that round out of there with the safety on. That helps, makes you feel a little bit comfortable, then go for it. Okay, now we're going to shoot an auto-loading rifle. I chose this one because this is the one that is most like the one that I drew in the picture earlier. This is a Wyndham Weaponry AR-15. These are still available and made brand new in the United States of America. These are very nice AR-15s. If you're looking to buy a complete rifle, I would certainly look into these Wyndham Weaponries. I very highly recommend these. Okay. We've got the steel downrange. The steels, of course, I moved farther back. This is a rifle. This is supersonic. Shooting a steel target is not very safe if you do it up close with the rifle. Okay, now like I said earlier, recoil is inevitable. An AR-15 eliminates basically as much recoil as you really can as far as military weapon goes. Okay, we're going to go hot, shoot on some steel. Now, remember, you got to line up your sights. Got a rear peephole. And you've got a front post sight. You put that top of that front post in the center of your rear peephole. So when we're getting ready to go hot, a few things on safety. It's also not chambered. There is ammunition in the magazine. These are 50 grain VMAXs. Okay, going hot. Okay, now with the precision of this rifle, I was able to hit that big plate no problem. I think I've got 1 or 2 more rounds left in here. I'm going to go for the slightly smaller plate to the left. I flipped the weapon on safety when I quit shooting right there. That's a good habit to get into. Just as soon as you're done shooting, flip it back on safety. Still, don't point it anywhere you don't want a round going, but still, it's a good thing to get used to. Let's try to hit that 4-inch steel. Sorry, that one's 6 inches, not 4 inches. I'll try to hit the 4 inches right now. I got one more left. Okay, apparently I'm shooting pretty good today. You might have heard me. I flipped it on safety again. It's just a good habit to get into. Alright, YouTubers, I hope you enjoyed my video. Please subscribe. I'm going to put a link in the description of my Facebook page. You can follow my videos there. There's going to be a lot of things that necessarily don't quite make it to YouTube that also get put there, kind of funny. I also post my brother's channel. I post his videos on there, so it's kind of cool. Anyways, I know this video is a little bit long. I'm going to try to keep them a little bit shorter than this. I don't really want it to get like nothing fancy with 50-minute long videos, so I'm going to try to make them a little bit longer. Just want to do a little bit of a shout out real quick. Thor target steel. These targets are awesome. He didn't actually make the stand. I made this myself. I've found a few improvements that I can make on this stand. Other than that, though, I will always shoot Thor target steel. This stuff is awesome. Holds up to a 50 BMG at 25 yards. I might make a review video for that soon. Next video coming up, though, is going to be on my Springfield M1A national match.